Hey y'all, guess the countdown was not working apparently, which should not be the case considering how much money I pay for the service monthly. So that's something I'll have to address, I guess. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'm excited to talk about season 2 of Alice in Borderland. I kept saying I was going to review it all the time, and this month just kind of became very busy for me. So many things I had to do, so many things I wasn't expecting that I would have to do. Um, and it kind of just escaped me that I wanted to review it in the first place because I kind of saw it. What, the day it came out? It has to be the day I came out, I saw it. Have to be. I was going to wait until Christmas or after Christmas. But I was like, no, I've been trying to see this for a long time. I was like, I'm just gonna do it now. And yeah, it was really good. Obviously, I mean, what can I say? That was one of the best. That's just totally my genre. It's everything that I want in a show. Uh, yeah, I'm. It's the best show. One of the best shows I've ever seen. It's definitely a Netflix gem. Let's address that right now. One of the best. But I'm rambling. Thank you so much for joining. Let me scroll over to my live comment section in case I don't so that I don't miss any comments. So if you are here, please let me know if you're here to talk about it. I want to know all of your thoughts on Alice in Borderland season 2. I have a slideshow just to keep myself on track. Um, and we'll talk about it. There's so many things that I need to address. The second season, like, really puts some other things into perspective. It changes kind of like everything. What I thought it was the reason why they were in Borderland was not the reason I thought by a landslide. But I also didn't read the manga, so I didn't know beforehand. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't because if I knew the whole time it was a meteor before I watched the first season, I don't think I would have been as hyped for it. And hyped for them to get out of it. So yeah, I'm a person who's probably gonna see and then read afterwards to see if reading it ups the quality uh of the movie or the show. So that's how I'll kind of judge it. So I may read the manga after this, especially because there were things that were mentioned in it, like the Joker part, that they didn't really mention but just kind of hinted at the end. You know what? While we're on it, let's just talk about it anyway. Right. So yeah, it was a meteorite the whole time. I mean, I guess it makes sense because they saw fireworks. Oh, you know what? And this explains why because in the first season, when they went into the bathroom, when they all went into the bathroom stall, that had to have been the moment where they got struck, obviously, because they went in, then they went out of the stall, and all of a sudden they were in Borderland. And so that has to be what happened to them. And his friends just didn't make it, but he did. Um, and also it makes a lot of once I knew that it was a meteorite, and I was like, well, all these people got hit in the same place. And I'm like, well, how did they get there in different times? Because everyone who was in Borderland got struck by the meteorite around the same time. But as we all know, time works differently in Borderland than it does in reality. So if I got hit a second after you did, you'll probably be in there at least a month before me. So that's a terrible hell to have to have been a part of. But that's how it is. So, and we learned that the kings and queens they they already completed a cycle and decided to stay and be a part. Sorry, I'm just cleaning the. There you go. They decided to stay for some weird reason. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, considering the personalities of the kings and queens, when you meet them, you're like, I can see why they would have stayed, except maybe one. Maybe one. There's like one of them. I was like, I don't see why you would have thought to stay. You're not a psychopath like the rest of them. And you probably know which one I'm talking about. Um, But yeah, it being a meteorite the whole time. As someone who didn't read the manga, I was gagged. um, but yeah, that changes. Well, that changed everything. But let's go on ahead and talk about the first game. Well, not the first. Technically, it is the first, but also like second to last at the same time. It's the first game that the first card game, but the the second to last one that they finish. It would have been the last one if it weren't for the Queen of Hearts game. Mm, uh, King of Spades. That I just felt like that was the most unfair game of them all. Like, uh, they all have a mercenary who has a bunch of ammo drop down. Like, well, he can get it from parachutes and stuff like that. But he is a mercenary, and all of Borderland is his playing field. That is so not fair. Like, that was just, I mean, that was just their way of just destroying everybody at the same time. And I'm like, how are there supposed to be people who can play the other games if the King of Spades has wiped everyone else out? Like, that's not fair. Don't you want them to still be able to play the other face cards? So if everyone's dead, but so, I mean, some people still escaped, and but the thing is, like, I feel like he should have been able to stay in one area, but because well, it is a spades game, and the spades games require agility. So, and if this is the king of spades, it's the highest level of spade. So it requires the highest amount of agility and stamina. So I guess it would be the biggest battle of battles in the spade territory, considering he would be able to have all of Borderland as his playing field. Um, so technically it is fair, but at the same time, like, come on now. Couldn't nobody really beat him except for the crew at the end, but they all got torn up too. I thought they were all gonna die. I thought everyone was a goner. I thought everyone was a goner. I'm so surprised that everyone still made it out. First of all, you wouldn't think a show would do that, but literally everyone who started at the beginning made it out. And I was like, good for everyone. I with the injuries that they had, I did not see that coming. Girl with the arrow, she got shot up way too many times to still live. Kuina, she got stabbed in the stomach, right, many times. I did not see them living. I have to hand it to them. They had a lot of balls for doing that, for keeping everyone alive. I thought Anne was dead. I thought she died, like, way before. But everyone lived. Cool. And they deserved it. They all took him out. Um, but yeah, King of Spades, he was a mercenary. Uh, Decided to stay in the games after completing his cycle. And it's just so crazy to think that, like, they all completed their own cycle. And this is like happening. The meteorite is killing people within seconds. But, depending on how far away they were, determines when they got there and how long they're there. So, like, pretty much in the span of reality, everyone got hit roughly at the same time, but they've already been there, done that, and decided to stay, and that's just wild. But you can see pretty much why he decides to stay, because he's corrupted himself. A mercenary who, through his experiences in his flashback, he had to shoot his friend to put him out of his misery. And apparently in the manga they touch over all of that as well, about his friend whose name was Apache. I was watching some videos that talk about, like, connections to the manga. And his friend Apache died, and but he, like, told him to, put the gun to his head to make his passing easier. And so I guess he just developed this mentality that he's pretty much saving everyone from pain and death and everything. I don't know, some weird philosophy. He was crazy, and his was the hardest. Yeah, you know what? Even though Queen of Hearts was the last battle, the King of Spades was the hardest one that they had to do. That we saw, because we saw like snippets of some that didn't get like a full episode, and some got like 3 whole episodes to themselves. And then there are some that I wanted a lot more screen time, and I'll talk about that. Uh, but yeah, this oh my god, oh I just thought about it. You know what? I'll think about it. I'll think about it later. I'll think about it later. Hopefully, I don't forget. But yeah, they. Even though this was at the end, I'm just gonna put all the King of Spade part together. Um, yeah, they worked hard. I just thought. I mean, he got everyone, and to be honest, it was kind of satisfying to know that they really did have to suffer a lot of damage before taking him down, and it wasn't like in the movies where it would be like, oh, we all band together, we'll be able to take him down. Like everyone still got torn the f up while trying to defeat him. Uh, so, and I thought they were going to die, but thankfully Arisu completed the Queen of Hearts game at the last minute and saved everyone. So, yay for them. But this was a great way to start out the game. Yeah, it was great. And then like the fact that this was an unresolved game until the very end. So like you're always, and then they put him throughout the middle. So you know, like when he was with was it Agni? Is that his name? Is that his name? I don't know. When he was in the forest with the dude from season 1 and the new girl from season 2 with the arrow, and they were trying to, you know, they were trying to bait the King of Spades in the forest. Like he was dispersed through the game, so like while they're trying to do all the other face card games, he's still looming in the background. And they're still worried about him as well. So that was a great way of keeping the tension up. So King of Spades game was definitely a top tier game throughout the entire run of the show. Yeah, here's where we get to the King of Clubs game. And also shout out to this actor because I feel like he was definitely a standout in this particular season. I forget his real name, but also shout out to you, sir. Your body was wonderful, and it did not go unnoticed. I appreciated what I saw. You obviously worked very hard to make sure your body looked good on camera. So good for you. I mean, did he really ever explain why he was naked the whole time? I forget. It's been a month since I saw it, and I didn't really get to go like rewatch it before doing this. But what I don't understand is why he stayed back. I don't know if you're watching and you know why and you have a better knowledge of why he just and his. Well, I understand his friends stayed with him because that, you know, that's their group. You know, they're like this. But why he stayed? He was the only. I don't want to call him sane because he decided to stay back in Borderland and just be a citizen and you know, be a king of clubs. No one's sane for staying in Borderland willingly, but I would have to put him, you know, of all of the ones that we saw, of the kings and queens that we saw, I would put him at the lowest in terms of like, I don't know, psycho/sociopathy. I mean, because the dude had his friends, and you know, they had this code, and like he was really helping Arisu like learn lessons throughout the game, and I like Arisu said, he was like, wow, we really could have actually. I feel like we could have been friends despite all this. Like we could have had a good relationship, like knowing like where each other comes from and things like that. I was actually sad to see him go. Is that weird? I was actually sad to see him go. Like when he died, I was like, dang, I know they really have to get rid of you, otherwise they can't move on, but you know, oh well. I felt bad. I felt bad for him because he didn't actually be there anyway, but he chose to stay. He literally could have just lived, but he decided to stay and then died as a result of choosing to stay and be a king of clubs. Now, to be fair, they were winning. They definitely were like actually about to win if it weren't for what's his name deciding to cut his hand off. Um, I didn't think that he was going to make it throughout the entire show, but I didn't think he was gonna die in episode and after this first game, not first. Technically, it was their second game, but the first game that they completed. Um, I felt bad for that boy too, because we got to see like why, um, not why he was there, because he was in the circle. You know, they were all pretty much came around the same time. But his story where he was working in the um he helped fix cars and he accidentally hurt his superior, and he felt really bad about that. Um, but I mean, I'm of all of the people who came to Borderland as a result of the meteorite, he wasn't like a bad person. He caused that accident. But I was like, is this really worth him sacrificing his hand? I don't know. I mean, it was what he wanted to do. I was like, and then when he said he might survive this, I was like, no, your blood loss is a little too much, and you have nothing to wrap that up. And he wouldn't have survived the next games that they went on to play anyway. So, um, it was honorable of him to do that. I felt bad for him, especially because Arisu saved him, and then he was able to save Arisu. Um, but I didn't think he was gonna last that long, but I didn't know he was gonna go that fast either, if you know what I mean. But yeah, this game was. It seemed like they weren't gonna win. It seemed pretty not impossible, but highly improbable. Um, but I also think that there were ways that they could have. Um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times they made the games, and I'm talking about like Arisu and the gang. I feel like sometimes their panic and the situation caused them to not think a lot about how they can win sometimes. I think they'll get started with the game without really thinking of it. Like he'll have to be under so much stress and fear of being about to die for him to really come up with a good solution. And even in this game, it wasn't even his idea that helped them win. It was what's his face, right? In the cap. I forgot his name because it's been a long time. Chata, was it Chata? Chata? Was that his name? I forget. But it was his idea. But other than that, I think they were almost gone if it weren't for that. So thankfully they got out of it. But this was a good game, and I was this was definitely a game where I was like, how are they about to win this? Um, but like I said, I feel like there were definitely ways that where they didn't have to wait to the last minute. There were most definitely ways they could have still won. A lot earlier, I would say. But yeah, this was really cool. A really cool game. Although a bit terrifying. Like when they showed the landscape, like the full, like just how massive the playing field was here. I was like, this would take all day. But at the same time, all you have to do is just keep running and running and running. You may eventually come across someone, but also Usagi's uh her agility skills when she was jumping across those crates, I was like, girl, not me. I don't know if I could have done it. I mean, you do what you have to do in the moment, but I mean, when she was catching those things at the last minute, I was like, I don't know if I would have made it. But yeah, this was a really good game, and I think this was the game where I think Arisu really, I guess, really took away something. Uh, and like I said, like this was, I felt really bad. I was like, dang. I was like, I know he's gonna have to beat him, but he seemed like a cool guy. Um, he just should have never stayed behind. He should have just continued. He and his friends, once they beat their cycle and completed the game or completed the ability to come back to life, and they chose to stay in limbo. I mean, they didn't know it was limbo at the time, but dang, he would be alive. if he didn't choose to stay behind. So, well, that's how it is. But I feel like they could have they had like good chemistry. They would have been able to um have a cool bond, or even if if he was in the same cycle as Arisu and they came across each other, they would have like had I guess a great partnership. And they could have really. I felt Arisu really felt bad about having to kill him. It was something he had to do, but he really felt bad, and I think we all kind of felt bad. Um, but yeah, he was the only one that seemed like a pretty okay person. He just had a band, and they had their group, and they did things together. So it was apt for him to be the king of clubs because he was with his group and he existed as a team, and he didn't consider himself better than his crewmates, and they all thought of themselves as one cohesive unit. Um, so it made sense for him to be king of clubs. He probably did. How do they decide what type of king or queen they're going to be? That's also a question that's not answered, unless it's answered if it's in the manga, then I want to know. But other than that, how do they get their positions? It makes sense based off of their personalities and how they got there, how they got that position. Like him, he came with his friends and he probably didn't want to like be separated. Like it wouldn't make sense for him to be the king of spades because he came as a group with his friends. They all died at the same time or almost died at the same time. Um, and I don't know, how did they work that out? That's another question. I guess I didn't know I had it until now. All right. See, this is where it picked up. I'm not gonna lie. This game, oh, this game carried for me. This game was everything. Was it Solitary Confinement? Oh yeah, the other game was called Osmosis, um, and it was the King of Clubs game, and they were able to defeat them. But this game right here, I was hoping they would devote so much time to this game. Like I did not want it to be over. This game carried for me. This was amazing. And uh Chisia, Chisia, Chisia. I'm not gonna lie, dude that played him, I would give him. I'm gonna say he was the MVP of this season because his character also carried this season. I mean, he defeated two kings during his run. Did he do more? No, I felt well. I don't know. We don't even see if he did more, but on paper, like receipts wise, we know he took down two kings and really not two kings. He took down the Jack of Hearts and the King of Diamonds. We'll get to the King of Diamonds later. But this game, Solitary Confinement, this was so good. I was like, honestly, if this game was the entire season, I probably wouldn't even be mad. This game could have been the whole entire season. Would not have cared. If there were more people, that would have been great. Because this game is like, you really had to trust what someone was telling you. And it was a great game. Now Jack of Heart. Oh snap. Okay, so yeah, so this was the only Jack game that was highlighted. And I mean highlighted in a sense where I know there were some other games that they didn't give a lot of airtime to, that was just like a montage, and I think those were some of the other Jack games. But this was the only Jack game that was highlighted because this is the game that Chisia decided to enter into. But this game was amazing. This carried for me. It was great. I mean, this one would have been the one where I felt like, yeah, I actually might die because you really don't know. But at the same time, I feel like this game also could have been. I felt like in this game, people were kind of like sabotaging themselves a lot. Like that one lady who was actually told the truth, but because of like how she felt about her surroundings and the people around her, and not them being her feeling like they weren't trustworthy, like She killed herself. She When someone told her what um her actual like, so it was, you had to choose between, so the what would pop up would be a heart, a spade, a club, or a diamond, obviously. And um I forgot what hers was, but she asked someone, she the first time, so the people in her group that she was in this group right here, yeah, she's the one in the red with that crazy girl. I knew it wasn't her. So like the girl, she was acting crazy, she was acting all psychotic, and I was like, yeah, they're trying to make it seem like it's her, but it wasn't. I felt like from the beginning, I was like, it's definitely not her. She's just psychotic, but that doesn't make her the Jack of Hearts, because the Jack of Hearts would be a lot less obvious. Not unobvious, but still not um overly done personality wise. So the lady in the red, she this when it was her time for them to tell her what her symbol was, they told her the truth. So then she saw these other two dudes who weren't good for nothing, and she pulled them aside and she was like, I feel like my group isn't being very honest with me. Can you please tell me what my symbol is? And they're the ones that lied to her. And I was like, Lord, you played yourself. And I get what she was trying to do, but literally everyone in the group, before the two dudes, like everyone in the group never hesitated when they told her her symbol. So when she asked what it was, they were like, oh, like say it. I forget what symbol it was the first time, but like let's just say it was a heart. Like, and she was like, what's my symbol? Everyone was like, it's a heart, it's a heart. And they were like, there wasn't like any hesitation in their voice. And they weren't like looking at each other like, it's a heart. Like they were like, no, it's a heart. Like they said it pretty much immediately. I was like, you should have believed them that time. I think she should have read her, because the hearts game is also about like reading other people and getting that type of feedback. Like, what was the inflection in their voice? How did their tone convey this message to make them, were they lying when they said that? Just trying to figure that out. But in that particular moment in time, they weren't lying to her. And I knew that they weren't lying to her. So yeah, I get what she was trying to do, but she should have read the room a lot better, and she would have lived. This girl was crazy. I didn't know she was gonna last that long, but they got rid of her. But also, why does she? Everyone was so easily swayed by her for no reason. Like they were so scared. I'm just like, they didn't have to be like Chisia, where like he was like overly calm and just analytical. They didn't have to be like that, but they didn't have to be scaredy cats about it. Like they were so frail and just like, oh, we're gonna follow behind her the whole time. I'm just like, okay, that's hive mentality, and it's never healthy. So they all started turning on each other eventually, because no one had an actual backbone. Um, and then going back, dude right here that isn't Chisia, the one in the overalls, like I love how they even set his character up. Like this dude is a grown man. Well, I don't know how grown he is, but he's obviously not young enough for this outfit. And dude is dressed like a whole child. So I'm like, he's obviously on the naive side. So when they got to a point where he just couldn't take it anymore, he decided to I think he willingly said a different symbol, because he and Chisio they were trusting each other to say the right one. So after he died, Chisio was like, well damn, now I gotta rethink my whole strategy. Now I gotta ask somebody else who isn't really feeling me what my thing is. So I can tell that was definitely a stressful, that was really where it got good. I'm actually for that was really good for tense, trying to convey a sense of tension, because he couldn't rely on the kid man anymore after he died. So he was like, well, I now have to, we have to see like how he's going to get himself out of this. So I think his need to know who the Jack of Hearts was went up exponentially, because he knew, he didn't have that stability anymore of the dude being able to tell him his. But I mean, we all knew he wasn't gonna make it out anyway. I was like, he's too naive for this world. So when the meteor hit him, it just kind of did him a favor because he wasn't gonna win at life. He probably wasn't even gonna get out of life old. Something probably would have happened to him anyway if it wasn't a meteor. So yeah, I think he chose. He said something different because he wanted to die. He couldn't take it anymore, and he was like, "Dang." But yeah, this was my was it my favorite? I think this was my favorite game of the season because yeah, I think it was my favorite game. I'm gonna because this game carried this carried for me. Yep. So this man was revealed to be the Jack of Hearts, and he wasn't the one that they started out with. So like they started out the scene with the dude that he was with coming in, like the serial killer dude who decides to stay afterwards. Um and he comes in and he picks it up, and we see that Chicia is there in that same space. So he's with him, and I was like, eh. So what happened was the serial killer dude, whose face I didn't put in here, he starts it off. So everyone was being honest about. Everyone started off being honest about um, their symbols. Um, but then when that stupid dude with the tattoos, that stupid egghead dude, probably a yakuza or I don't know, some thug. Um, he was picking on the dude, and the serial killer dude was like, "You should tell him tell him a false symbol and get rid of him." So once that happened, and that stupid guy was the first to die, everyone was like, "Oh, we saw what happened. That dude, uh, that dude put the wrong symbol in his head, or he told him to pick the wrong symbol." Oh no, was it they started ganging up on the dude who said the wrong symbol? Yeah. Okay, so the dude who said the wrong symbol, but was told by the serial killer dude to say the wrong symbol. They didn't see him whisper in his ear that he should tell him a wrong symbol. So that's what happened. So then they got rid of the other dude because he was like, well, he lied that first time. He could probably lie again. So he pretty much set that dude up. But yeah, this was a really good one. And surprisingly, it was the Jack's game, the Jack of Hearts. Now, those Hearts games are always the more ruthless ones. And you always expect those to be really good. So, but yeah, Jack of Hearts, amazing. They were able to, he, along with another fine dude who was there, and the serial killer were all able to pick him out. And because they were able to successfully get him, he died. So, but I think they tortured him before he went out with the laser. I think they killed him. I want to say they killed him or the laser something. I forget how they took him out. But yep, Chicio was able to take down the Jack of Hearts. And yeah, that was great. I think that was like a whole. It was this. That game came on after they finished the King of Clubs. After Arisu and them finished the King of Clubs game, Osmosis, then it went to Chicia and the Jack of Hearts game, and that was like halfway through the episode. And I'm like, oh my god, I want this to be like 3 episodes. Like the King of Clubs game was like 3 episodes, but this was the game that I really wanted to be 3 episodes. I was like, this game could be the whole season. I don't even care. But it was great. I didn't want it to end. Yeah, this was definitely the MVP game of the season, in my opinion. All right, so next up, I don't remember if this was actually next up, but Usagi came across a young boy, who he didn't know where his parents were, and he was being taken care of by another small young lady, and she may have been a teenager. And his visa was about to expire, so Usagi was like, I want to try and get him some points, or get him some more days so he can be here." So along the way, so before this game, Arisu and Usagi got separated. while running away from the King of Spades. And um, she came across the boy, and she was like, "Wow, I want to get him some. I want to help extend his days." So she brought him along to this game and found Arisu was there. So that was good. And they came to the Queen of Spades, right? Yep, Queen of Spades. Oh, so this was the only. So the Spades games were the only ones that we saw with the King and Queen, both the King and Queen version of. All the other ones we didn't get to see the King or Queen equivalent of the game. This was the only. This was the only one that had where this season we saw both the King of Spades and the Queen of Spades, but no other. We didn't see like a King of Hearts. We didn't see. Well, I don't. Yeah, there's definitely a King of Hearts, right? Yeah, all of them. I don't play cards, but there's one for everyone, right? And we didn't see. We didn't see a Queen of Diamonds, like the King of Diamonds game I'm about to talk about, but we didn't see a Queen version of that. Like, you know what I mean? So this was the only. This was the only one where it was the King of Spades and the Queen of Spades games. And the Queen of Spades games was honestly, this didn't even need that much time. Everyone was freaking out. And I was like, this game could have been done so much. Like, no one really had. People were freaking out, but you really could have done this game without having to worry about your life because the game was called Checkmate, and the Queen of Spades and the three that were aiding her, were supposed to. What is it? Every 4 minutes? I think it was every 4 minutes they had to tag um, the back of their things that they have on them. And if they tag it, first they get a little bit of an electric shock. But then they turn red, indicating that they're on the Queen's team now. And during that next 4 minutes, they have to try and get everyone to one side. And it goes for 16 rounds, right? Yeah, 16 rounds. So it's pretty much a back and forth of trying to get everyone to be on the majority so that by the end of the game, whoever has the most people on their side wins the game. And so, yeah, I just thought there was this game. I was like, there were so many, not even so many ways, but this was a really simple one that didn't require that much work. So everyone was freaking out because, so it started out with everyone dispersing, which they should not have done in the first place. They should never have dispersed. They should have all stayed together. But because they don't know each other, they're just, freaking out as usual because your lives are all on the line. I get it. But for this game, it really was simple. So the Queen and her three that she starts out with, they have to tag everyone. So they're able to tag a lot of them, or the majority of them. So then by the end of that 4 minutes, most of them are all red now. So then they have to. So now it's up to whoever was still blue. In those next 4 minutes, it was up to them to try and tag all the red people back to blue. But I'm like, what I didn't get was, why were the people who initially got tagged by the Queen and her posse, when they first got tagged red, they were like, oh no, we're on the Queen side now, so now we should automatically be against the few who are still blue and run away. And I'm just like, bro, y'all could kill the Queen if y'all just work together and turned yourselves back blue. But everyone's running around and dispersing, and I'm like, y'all are about to get yourselves killed. But then she also promised them, she was saying, if y'all stayed on my side by the end and we were the majority, then you would win and you would be able to keep playing this game again. And I'm just like, who would want to do that? I would not want to keep trying to win this game over and over again just to keep my life. Like, at some point, you're just going to be too tired to do that. And you're just going to be like, well, kill me because I can't take this anymore. Like, this game was so simple. I didn't understand why they needed I mean, Usagi had to give them a pep talk at the very end, and she was like, "Y'all, we really just need to band together because we can easily defeat her." And she's just telling them not to be so scared and just like, and she's like, "Do y'all really want to sit here and keep playing in this cycle over and over again? Because eventually you'll get worn out." It's she's just talking common sense to him, and I was like, this game shouldn't have been that. I mean, the game is 16 rounds, so the game took the amount of time that it would have taken. But all I'm saying is they wouldn't have had to worry so much if they just thought of a plan and stuck together. So they were rushing at the very last minute to get everyone back to blue, and they did successfully do that. And so the queen was the only one left on her side. But they could have been did that a long time ago. Like, even if the queen was the only one having to keep turning people back blue, at the end of the day, if they all stayed around each other, they could have just like, I mean, now I know she had like skills or whatever, and she was, agile and could, do all that foolishness. But like they did so much extra work. This game, they did so much extra work just because they didn't really think of ways to actually like defeat her until they had a pep talk by Usagi and they thought about how they should really defeat her. And I'm like, y'all should have just stuck to this at the beginning. Because she can't make y'all move. Like, if all y'all stood together, she couldn't make you move. So y'all could have just stood there and helped turn each other back and protect the child. And then the child could have been there to just, like, turn all of y'all back anyway. And it was, yeah. This game, I was like, nah, it wasn't fun. This was the game where I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed. Not in terms of, like, the show, because like the motives that the people had. I was like, yeah, I see people doing this and being illogical in this kind of situation. But I was like, wow, y'all wouldn't have had to worry so much if y'all thought this out better. So this game could have been easily won, but thankfully they did manage to win. But too much, they expended too much energy at the end. So yeah, but she also had a weird personality. She was also fine with staying in Borderland for some reason. I don't really know her story. I don't really think they talk about her story like that. She never has a flashback or anything. Um, so I don't really know too much, but about why she stayed. Um, she was the only one. No, Mira. They didn't do a flashback for Mira either. But we saw her in the previous season. Her and the King of Diamonds we both saw in the previous season, but not her. She was just the Queen of Spades, but we didn't really get to know too much about her. There's probably more about her in the manga, so I'll probably read that and see more. But she seemed really fine with her position as well, and she didn't want to tell him anything about the game. So Arisu, every time they completed it, he was like, "Can you please tell us a little bit about this game before you go?" And she was like, I'm not really telling you anything. Or maybe she was like, you'll eventually find out soon, so I'm not going to be the one to tell you. So she just kind of went out, and I was like, great, that's cool. But yeah, she was a threat. She was definitely a threat. But at the same time, like I said earlier, there were ways around that because them separating gave her the edge and allowed her to punk everybody into being on her side. But if they all banded together from the beginning and stayed together and was around the child, like, yeah, there was a lot of extra work they had to do for no reason. So yeah, but they did it, so good for them. And the boy got extra days to stay, and they eventually made it out as well, because in the last scene in the hospital, he goes past the lady who was taking care of the boy, so it's assumed that they both made it out. So that was good. All right. So this was the King of Diamonds game. This was definitely a game that probably only Chisia could have made it out of. I don't think Arisu or Usagi probably would have got out of this one if they did this one. Um, so this game was like suited for Chisia to be a part of and to eventually overcome. And then we found out that the King of Diamonds was what's his face, who was one of the lieutenants on the beach or at the beach in season one. Just like Mira. Mira was also a lieutenant. So I don't know why I didn't think of it, because when we first saw her appear at the end of season one, I should have thought that the rest of them were at the same level as she was. Because this whole time, that means they were influencing the Hatter and his thoughts about the game. I'll talk about, you know what, I'll say that for close to the end. But yeah, he was lieutenant back when they were at the beach, and he was the King of Diamonds. And through this game, we found out that he was a lawyer who was who had the intention of using his power and his position to try and help the poor or those who can't really help themselves. And he got a reality check from his boss saying that you are not here to help the poor, you are here to help the rich. And he was like, but there are ways we can, he was just talking about, fairness and justice. And he was like, I signed up to be a lawyer to promote justice and to give out justice. And he was like, no. His boss was like, no, you're not here for that. I'm telling you that now. So he, I guess after being in Borderland, he became disheartened, I guess. And so, yeah, he was just complicit in knowing about the game. So he was also one who completed his cycle. He was there at the same time the meteorite hit, and he was obviously a lot closer to the meteorite, seeing as he was there a long time before Arisu and them. And yeah, this was a really tough one that I'm not entirely sure I would have been able to do under a lot of pressure of death, especially knowing there was sulfuric acid. Let me go back. Those scales had sulfuric acid in them, and if you weren't able to be the closest to the right answer, then you would lose a point. And if you got to -10, then it was your time to go, and you would have sulfuric acid over you. And that was definitely one of the worst ways to die throughout this entire series. Because, yeah, that was one of the worst ways to die. Because it was slow. And just, ugh. Yeah, no, this had one of the worst ways to go out. Absolutely one of the worst ways to go out throughout the entire run. But it makes sense because it's the King of Diamonds. So it was a boss level. But yeah, this was a really good game. Not as exciting as Solitary Confinement, but I think Chisia, even though he was really smart and intelligent, I think this was, I don't want to say it was a challenge for him, but like, I think he was like, you know what, if I really do die here, then I guess that's okay. He was like, I think he was the most resigned to his possible end here at this game. But at the same time, he really wanted to get into the mind of the King of Diamonds. And because they knew each other, because he was at the beach. Chisia was at the beach, and he knew King of Diamonds. They were all at the beach. And he was like, wow, I would have never thought it was you. I guess he did. I mean, I don't know. Did he say he didn't think it was him? That it would be him? But yeah, so King of Diamonds, was it Chisia made a risk. He did he made a risk with his, oh no, that's right. He pretty much kind of forced the King of Diamonds to put both of their lives in his hands, to the point where he would have to choose whether he would kill himself or he would kill Chisia. And Chisia was like, look, either way, it's just like, just do what you feel is the right thing to do, because King of Diamonds. I don't remember his name. That's why I keep saying King of Diamonds. But he was battling. Like his whole purpose there was him battling. Um, having people's lives in his hands, and it kind of being the parallels of him being a lawyer, um, and having to fight for justice, and him pretty much having to figure out if killing himself or killing Chisia was justice or if it was helping, truly doing good. And Chisia made a move that King of Diamonds was like, well, you would if I picked the number that was closest. So Chisia purposefully picked the too high of a number, and King of Diamonds was like, why would you do that? Now it's up to me, and I could choose the number that's closest. And Chisia was like, look, you can do that if you want to. It is truly up to you whether you want to win or lose. And that was his personal battle that he had to fight. So King of Diamonds really, he thought about it, and after everyone else died, that is. So it was those two and three other people. This one dude who looked homeless. I don't know what his thing was, and some other dude, some young dude, and some lady. And they all eventually got wiped out. And then it just became those two. And he was thinking hard about. I mean, he was also. I wouldn't call him a psychopath either. I did say that all of the kings and queens were like socio/psychopaths. I guess he wasn't. He was just he became very disheartened to the point where he was like, this is even really. I guess he just really even didn't. He chose to. Why did he choose to stay is the real question. Because I mean, yeah, life is horrible. I get it. That's just the reality of the world. Why on earth would you think Borderland was a better place for you to stay? I mean, you could have gone back to, not that he knew that he could return back, but they're all wondering whether they can return back home. That's been the goal this whole time. So if you completed your cycle and you were faced with the ability to stay or leave, and he chose to stay, why would he have done that? And I get that, life was unfair. He didn't get to be able to stand up for people like he wanted to, but being in Borderland was still worse. Like, it doesn't even matter what they thought was bad in their lives. Borderland is worse. I don't get it. And everyone was like, I don't know if I really want to go back. And I'm just like, Borderland is a terrible purgatory. And it literally was purgatory. Like, it was actual limbo. And they're like, I don't really know if I want to go back. I'm just like, but do you really think here is better, having to fight for your life every few days like that? And I'm like, I just feel like there's a logical answer to this. Like, I don't know. I don't understand. It's crazy. Literally anywhere was better than there. Whatever. I mean, sitting there having to do this? Playing games like this? I mean, that's crazy. And then even if you finish your cycle, your life here is still not guaranteed because you just have to prepare for a next wave of people. Oh, snap. You know what? I just thought about it. So Attitude was the main character, but there were still people who got hit in the blast after him. So there are people entering Borderland, right, as he's leaving it. And the people who decided to stay behind are now kings and queens of that. Oh, well, that's the whole thing. The cycle continues. The cycle continues. The cycle really shouldn't continue, though, is what I'm trying to say. Who in their right mind would want to stay there? That's what I'm trying to figure out. No place is worse than this. You're literally having to, and I don't know. When Usagi was talking about how, her life was, because her father, not knowing whether he jumped off a cliff or not, or a mountain, he died over top the mountains, and, having a terrible life after that. I'm just like, but you can get through that. You can't get through Alice in Borderland like that. You will eventually tire yourself out. and submit to death eventually. No one wants to keep doing that all the time. That's crazy. Sorry. It's crazy. But he thinks long and hard about whether he is going to say the number that's closest to, what was it, closest to 50? Like 50 was like the best answer. And if he chose 0, then he would have died because you couldn't choose 0 or something. But he eventually chose um, the wrong number so that he just pretty much put his life before Chisia's and was just like, well, I feel like I did the right thing. So I think he felt better about himself going out. So he feels like he did the right thing. And to be honest, I think this was a game that really changed Chisia. Um, like, so the solitary confinement game, that was just like, a fun little thing for Chisia. Even though his life was on the line, he was just like, yeah, this is just a battle of wits, just to see who it is. But I think the conversation that he had with the King of Diamonds really kind of like, you kind of saw that vulnerability. And we also found out that he was a doctor. Chisia was a doctor who also was having trouble being able to save those who were worth saving. But by the hospital, it was like it was a rich patient that came in, and because he was rich, it automatically gave him the ability to receive, what was it, an organ transplant that this poor kid, really not poor, but just this kid that wasn't as rich, was at the top of the list, and he was supposed to be getting it. And so Chisio was excited to be able to save this child's life. But then this rich person comes in, and their son needs needs that same organ. What was it, a heart? Um, and the Chisio superior is just like, yeah, we have to put this person as priority because their father like is a sponsor of the hospital or something like that, or like good friends with the director or something. I don't know. But just how the world works, the reality of the world. It's just like, sometimes it's hard being able to stand up for what's right. So he also became very disheartened and just kind of took a lot of his emotions away. And uh also, I felt like he was a little too young to be a doctor. Like, I would have never thought he was a doctor ever. Like, I don't know, maybe he just looks really good for his age, and that's fine. But I would have never thought his profession outside of Borderland was a doctor. I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's a doctor. um, but yeah, this particular game, the King of Diamonds, and him talking with him, um, I think it really opened him up and made him feel a lot more emotions that he wasn't previously feeling while he was in Borderland, and made him think a lot more about himself and his situation. And like when he finished the game, when he cleared the game, the King of Hearts decided, I mean, and the King of Diamonds decided to, take himself out for the sake of doing what he felt was the right thing to do. Um, when Chisia was released from the game, he didn't like walk away. He was like, he wasn't like, yeah, I just took down a king. He was like, I think he was just kind of like dawning over everything and thinking about the game and his conversation with him, and made him get deep in his feels. And I thought that was a moment. And then we saw him sacrifice himself for Usagi. He allowed himself to get shot, and that was something that would have felt out of character if it weren't for this game. This game made him think a lot more about his situation and others as well, because he couldn't see others' motivations. Sometimes he was like, "It's stupid. It's not analytical. It doesn't make sense." Um, but I think that game was a game changer for him, literally. Um, so yeah, that changed his character. Like, you saw a different side of him playing that game, and he came out of it very a completely different person afterwards. Um, so After they were able to take down the King of Spades at the cost of everyone almost dying, um, Arisu is finally able to talk to Mira, the Queen of Hearts, obviously. And you know, Alice in Borderland is obviously, um, in reference to Alice in Borderland. I mean, Alice in Wonderland. And the Queen of Hearts is the villain of Alice in Wonderland. And so I was like, I know for sure they're going to save the Queen of Hearts for last. And once I found out that they were playing for the face cards, I was like, I know she has to be the Queen of Hearts. She has to be. And I love, if you didn't get the White Roses reference, then watch Alice in Wonderland and you'll get it. And there's literally a whole song about painting the roses red and everything. So, and then the game that she plays, that she has them play is croquet. Alice in Wonderland reference again. So that was satisfying as someone who, loves Alice in Wonderland, saying that. I'm just glad that at least that, the Queen of Hearts game, was the most similar to the concept of Alice in Wonderland. So that was cool. But yep, she's the Queen of Hearts, and she was the last one that they had to tackle. And the Hearts game had the most significance out of all the games in this particular series. So it made sense for it to be the last one. And because it is the Queen of Hearts, it's obviously going to be the most it's going to be the hardest one. The King of Spades was the hardest one of them all, like literally, but Queen of Hearts was the game, that was the one where you really had to have all of the mental fortitude in the world to get through. And all they had to do was finish 3 games of croquet. Like, win or lose, didn't even matter. They just had to finish it. But when she said that, I was like, there's going to be something else that she does to them while they're playing this game. And that's going to be where the Queen of Hearts part comes in. I was like, because she pretty much determines the length of the game, right? So she's not just going to let you play 3 games without getting inside your head, right? Or doing something to make you feel the lowest of the low and try and quit. Because it's up to her to try and make you quit. And because it's the Queen of Hearts game, she has the ability to pretty much make this whole experience unique to you. So Adisu was trying to figure out why they're here in the first place. And she's like, all right, you finally want answers. You brought this upon yourself. Well, she invites them for tea, of which they don't drink the tea. I wouldn't drink the tea either. And she's like, all right, I'm going to tell you, but you need to be able to take the information when I give it to you. So she first starts out by saying that they're in a virtual reality. And I was like, I bet you she's going to say that they're in a virtual reality because that's the easy thing to say. And she was like, where the year that you think it is, it's actually 500 years from now. And human beings have been able to just utilize technology and just be gods and be able to not die and just become immortal. But because they were immortal and they didn't have to know what it felt like to die anymore, they created the games to get them feeling the rush of possibly being able to die, and that they were playing this game, and that they got so caught up in the game that they just didn't even remember that they chose to be in it. And I was like, no, that can't be it, because if that's it, then this whole show would be stupid. Like, no one wants that to be the reason. So I was like, no, good one, but no. And that there were cameras hidden in the roses and stuff like that. I was like, no one's gonna believe that. I wouldn't believe that. But that was one. What else does she say? What else did she say was a reason why they were there? I'm blanking. I feel like she said a couple, like 3 reasons. But the third one was that she told Arisu that he had been making all of this up in his head the whole time, and uh, she kind of like brought him into this visual picture of him being in a mental facility, and he has to take his pills and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, that's not it either. I know they were trying to make that I know they were trying to make that it as well, but I was like, that wouldn't, no, because they would set it, if that were the reason, then they would have set up the beginning a lot more different if that were the case. But I was like, no, it's a different reason. I didn't believe it the entire time. And I know you would think that's kind of like anticlimactic, and it sort of kind of was, because I was like, he should never believe any of this. But because they had been through a lot, so they were like weak physically and mentally, so it was a lot easier to get inside his head. And he really thought that he really bought the last one. He really let her get into his head and think that he was in a mental facility. And if Usagi wasn't there with him, I feel like he would have actually given up and lost, because the Queen of Hearts' goal is to make you give up and lose the game. And if you lose the game and you quit, you die in real life. So I feel like if Usagi wasn't there, he would have given up. But because she was there and she was able to help him snap out of it and be like, you're not actually, this isn't your condition, this isn't where you are. And that whole scene was just kind of like the I guess the climax of it all, and just like showing their love for each other, and how their relationship came this far. And really it moved Mira a lot. I was like, even though she's the Queen of Hearts, I feel like she was hoping that she would get this result and that he wouldn't. I don't know. I feel like when she was crying, she wasn't like, you beat me crying, I lost. She was like, wow, this has actually moved me a lot, to the point where she was like, you know what? I'm going to continue the game now. No, well, he got up and he was like, let's continue the game. And she was like, well, I guess I got nothing else for you. So they were able to continue playing the game. And she did win it. He didn't win, but the whole point was just to complete it. But yeah, it was definitely a mind battle, and the biggest one. However, I'd say of all of the Hearts games, this wasn't the best one. It was the one with the most stakes, because she obviously got into his head and made him feel like he was in a mental asylum, and he was really about to take that pill. If Usagi wasn't there, he would have given up, period. But I feel like the actual like toughest Hearts game in this whole series was either the first one, where he killed his friends, through no fault of his really, but just because he was just the last one standing. Either that one, or I want to say the beach game, the 10 of Hearts. That was a really good one as well. The where the girl killed herself, but everyone thought it was somebody else, and no one could even think that it was possibly suicide. Those were good, but I think the Jack of Hearts game, that really carried for me. That was really good. Like when they came to the Queen of Hearts game, I was like, this can, like, I wouldn't want this to be expanded over a couple episodes, but Solitary Confinement, I was like, if this was the whole season, I would not care. I know I keep saying that, but it really was the best game for me. And Chisia was the MVP of the entire season, because he took down 2 bosses. And he went through a journey. I'm sorry, he was vital. He was really vital to them being able to take down the being able to finish. He was like vital to them being able to finish, as well as Kuina and Anne, because they played some games too, and they were able to take down some bosses. And then we saw, I think we saw, was it Arisu or Chisu? I think we saw them like walking out of a game, or no, walking out of a space, and we saw a bunch of people were able to take down a boss, and we didn't even know these people. They just were able to collectively take down the boss. And I'm like, well, I kind of wanted to see that too. I thought we were going to see all of the bosses, but no. But at least it conveyed that everyone was working together and doing what they needed to do to take down the bosses. So it really was a collaborative effort from everyone who was in Borderland to take down the bosses. So yeah, props to everyone, I guess. But it was up to Arisu to really save everyone by defeating the Queen of Hearts. But yeah, so this game was ended. They took them all day to finish this game. But yeah, she determined that because she didn't really care whether she was going to live or die. It was just about getting him to quit. But when she was so moved by those two's relationship and how beautiful it was, she was like, well, I guess I have nothing else really. So she just decided to continue the game. And then, yeah, she was able to be defeated. And they were finally able to win. And there were fireworks everywhere. And everyone who was still alive in Borderland was given a choice to either stay behind as a citizen of Borderland, which is why, or go back to reality. And most people said yes, as they should have. Although when they were doing the montage of who was saying yes and who was saying no, I was like, let me see who's going to say no. So the people that I thought were going to say yes did say yes. But the serial killer and that fine looking dude in the solitary confinement game, who were able to along with Chisia, figured out who the Jack of Hearts was and cornered him. Those two decided to stay. And I'm like, okay, if you feel like the real world isn't better than Borderland, you go right ahead and you stay. I didn't really care about them. I thought it was idiotic though. But with the serial killer's case, I guess I can see him staying. But like, he didn't even know that he was in a state of limbo the entire time. So he's going to continue not knowing. Or do they find out after they win that they're in limbo or they're in purgatory? I don't know. But the tall dude who was next to him, he decided to stay too. And I'm like, I don't know your story, but obviously you felt like you shouldn't go back to the real world enough to stay in Borderland. Whatever. I felt like, who else decided to stay? Those are the only two I remember wanting to stay. But mostly everyone wanted to leave, obviously. So the main crew, and pretty much everyone from the first season decided to go back. And yeah, it was over. And then we found out that everyone was in the same space when the meteor hit. And that's how we knew. And that's why we saw those fireworks at the beginning in season 1, and everyone was trying to figure out what those fireworks were. The fireworks were the meteor coming down. So yeah. But it was really good. I liked Alice in Borderland. It's one of the best things I've ever watched. And it was just really well done. I appreciated it. Oh, I put this image here because Hatter was like, honestly, this was the point in season 1 where it just kind of changed, and we figured out that if we get all the cards, maybe we could go home. But this was just to find out that he was only half right, and it didn't help that he had Mira and what's his face, King of Diamonds, there with him, and they, I guess they allowed him to keep thinking that was the case, and he thought if they had all the had all the number cards that they would be able to go home. But I'm like, how did he not think about the face cards as well? Because the number cards aren't the only cards in the deck. So I wonder why he was so he really remained steadfast in his belief that if you got all the number cards, you could go. Oh, never mind. I see that he has the jack cards right there. Okay, never mind. I take it back. So yeah, I mean, he was right. I thought he thought only the number cards. I forget. It's been a minute. But yeah. So, and too bad that Hatter couldn't stay to live through it. Yeah. But then we saw that. But he and Agnew were in the same place when they died. Well, died. So yeah. But oh well. And their relationship was sad too. I kind of wanted Hatter to stay. But I've always loved the Mad Hatter. So any form the Mad Hatter takes, no matter what type of visual representation or live action version of Mad Hatter, I'm always rooting for her. So that's just me. Too bad he didn't make it. I kind of want his character to stay for the second season. He did. He also was there in the form of hallucinations, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted him to be there in real life, helping to go through the games. But the beach was really essential to starting the face cards, because if Arisu and them hadn't been there and they had made the beach a game in itself, that wouldn't have worked if it weren't for Arisu. So no one would have been able to they wouldn't have been able to beat that if it weren't for Arisu, because he figured out that she killed herself. And if he wasn't there, I feel like the game would not have started unless Arisu and Usagi were there. I think, yeah, them coming was the catalyst for the game to start, I want to say. Because I feel like it wouldn't have started because it didn't happen until they got there. So all of a sudden, right when they get there and they stay there for like a couple of days, that's when they decide to start doing the game. And then also after Mad Hatter died. Maybe they were just waiting for him to die and then start the beach game? I don't know. Now that I think of it. I don't know. But yeah, the beach was definitely the catalyst for completing the number cards, because they only had one left. And it made sense for the beach to be it. And yeah, just getting into the face cards. It wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Arisu and Usagi ending up at the beach. So yeah, that was what changed the tide of everything. But yeah, this is really interesting. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the Joker card at the end. So I had to watch some videos to really get the Joker card and why it was there, because I felt like it wrapped up pretty well. And I was like, I don't think they should tease anything because it's over. But I was like, I guess it couldn't be over. I guess the Joker card is telling them that they're not really back in reality. But then, after watching a bunch of videos, in the manga, the Joker is a character, but he doesn't actually in the series he doesn't meet him. But in the manga, he's able to meet the Joker, but we don't kind of see him. And he asks Arisu if he sees him as a god or a devil. I guess he was like neither. And we find out that the Joker really was the one behind it all. And Borderland was purgatory, was that limbo. And the Joker's job was to ferry the dead souls. Either ferry the dead souls or have this game so that people can prove themselves worthy of continuing to live. Because the meteorite had a massive loss of life. And I guess the Joker was like, this will help bring back people who have who have a lot of worth, I guess, or can prove themselves worthy of being able to fight for their lives and come back to life, and have a second chance at life. And so that's what the games was for. So they really were in a purgatory, and the Joker was that mythological ferryman creature. I forget his name, and it was his job to just deliver dead souls, and or transfer people who are dying and dead. Um, and So that's what the whole thing. It was a bunch of religious mythological significance, which I'm always here for. I'm always here for a mythological slash religious reference. Um, I think that's just some of the best content for me. But yeah, this was a really great show, and the only reason I would want a third season is because it's just so good. You just want to see more of it. I didn't expect it to end in 2 seasons, but I also wanted it to end in 2 seasons because I was like, what else can you do after the face cards? Because once they took down the face cards, there's nothing else really for you to do. But then I forgot about the Joker card at the end. If the Joker card, if they want to go against the manga and make a third season out of the Joker card, like, I wonder what that would be. Them figuring out that they're not really back in reality and their memories have been wiped away. And I guess what would they have to do? I don't know what they would do in that sense. I have no idea. So I feel like I think it's over. I think it's safe to say it's over, but this was still one of the best done anything I've ever seen. Um, and I'm really glad that before the pandemic, I think I was never really that open to watching um, East Asian slash just kind of foreign films in general. And I think in 2020, or also as a result of me taking Mandarin in my last semester of college, really opened me up to wanting to learn, well, to watch, well, originally like watching Chinese shows to help with language and knowing more words and just getting the language practice and language audio. And through that, I started watching Chinese, Japanese, um, live action verse and anime, and also Korean works. And my viewer experience has changed for the better because of it. And I'm so glad that I get to watch other works from other parts of the globe. And I'm so happy that they're like so entertaining and such good quality. And the Western Hemisphere is not the only place that can produce good quality stuff. In fact, I ever since I've been watching foreign TV shows and movies, it's just kind of weird to not do it anymore. It's it's hard for me to find something to watch now because there's so many things out there, and like I've expanded my taste. I've expanded my my language tolerance when it comes to movies and TV. And this was an amazing work of art. And I didn't watch it dubbed. I watched it sub because I always feel like sub is better. Um, but this was really great, and this was everything I wanted in a horror sci-fi show. And it was also in reference to something that I grew up loving, Alice in Wonderland, because Alice in Wonderland has so much potential for horror. And a lot of people make it like a horror concept, but this was like the best done version of it. And yeah, just kind of exposing fairy tales for how scary they can really be. And that just makes some of the best TV for me. And yeah, this show was amazing. And I'm glad I got to talk about it because I wanted to when I had a chance. Because I had so many things that I wanted to talk about, but I've just been so busy with work and everything in the new year, and I forgot that I wanted to talk about it. So it didn't feel right for me to not talk about it. Um, but yeah, I had fun, and this is one of the best shows ever. And I'll finally be able to start it from the beginning all the way. Because before I saw season 2, I watched season 1 twice, and now I can watch it as one cohesive piece. So I can't wait to just sit back and do it all one day again. So yeah, it was fun. But thank you so much for joining me as I talk about it. If you watched during the live, then thank you very, very much for your time. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And if you are watching a replay of it, thank you still. And I'm sorry I didn't get to be able to catch you live. Um, but I still appreciate you watching and supporting. And please check out some of my other works, my other lives. The other lives I've done reviews of Chainsaw Man, and I'll be doing more in the future. I'm going to be doing reactions to One Piece and Bleach. I put a community post out there asking whether I should continue to watch, whether I should watch Naruto, because I was going to take a look at the big three anime, what's considered to be the big three, and those three are the big three. But Naruto, I'm not that hyped about watching, but I was just gonna ask anyway. So if you want me to watch it, let me know in the community post that I already posted. But I am going to definitely watch One Piece because I've heard so much about it. And Bleach is like kind of my genre, so I was gonna try and look at it anyway. So I'm gonna be posting reactions to that as well. So watch out for that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and push this video out there. And still in the comments, let me know what you thought, even if you didn't get to do it in the live stream. I still want to know your thoughts, because I had a great time watching this, and I want to know what you thought as well. So my throat is starting to hurt, so let me get up off of this and drink some hot tea because I thoroughly need it. But thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.